The Habsburg Dynasty: Power, Marriage, and the Architecture of Empire. Introduction. For more than 6 centuries, the Habsburg dynasty stood at the center of European politics. From a modest, noble family in medieval Switzerland to rulers of vast territories stretching across Europe and into the Americas, the Habsburgs shaped the political, cultural, and diplomatic landscape of the continent. Their rise was not built solely on conquest, but on strategy, particularly the strategic use of marriage, diplomacy, and dynastic continuity. Their story is not merely one of power, it is a story of ambition, reform, art, war, internal weakness, and ultimately decline. To understand the Habsburgs is to understand much of European history itself. The dynasty takes its name from Habsburg Castle, located in present-day Switzerland. In the 11th century, the family was one among many regional noble houses. However, their fortunes changed dramatically in 1273, when Rudolf of Habsburg was elected King of the Romans, effectively placing the family within the structure of the Holy Roman Empire. This election marked the beginning of a long transformation. Through calculated political maneuvering, the Habsburgs secured control of Austria in 1282. Austria would remain the core of their power for centuries. Unlike many dynasties that expanded primarily through warfare, the Habsburgs mastered dynastic marriage. A famous phrase summarized their strategy: "Let others wage war. You, happy Austria, marry." Through marriage alliances, they acquired territories in Burgundy, Spain, Hungary, Bohemia, and beyond. The 16th century marked the height of Habsburg power under Charles V. Born in 1500, Charles inherited an unprecedented collection of territories: Spain and its American colonies, the Netherlands, parts of Italy, Austria, and the title of Holy Roman Emperor. Under Charles V, the Habsburg Empire became one of the first global empires in history. It spanned Europe and the Americas, connecting continents through trade, religion, and imperial administration. However, ruling such a vast empire came at a cost. Charles faced constant wars against France, conflicts with the Ottoman Empire, and the growing religious tensions of the Protestant Reformation. The strain of governing such diverse lands eventually led him to abdicate in 1556, dividing the Habsburg inheritance into Spanish and Austrian branches. By the 18th century, the Austrian branch of the Habsburgs faced new challenges. When Maria Theresa inherited the throne in 1740, many European powers questioned her right to rule. This led to the War of the Austrian Succession. Despite early setbacks, Maria Theresa proved to be a capable and determined ruler. She strengthened the administrative structure of the state, modernized the military, and introduced educational reforms. Under her reign, compulsory primary education was introduced in Austrian territories, an extraordinary step for the time. Her governance marked a transition from medieval dynastic rule toward a more centralized and bureaucratic state. She also laid the foundation for the later Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Habsburgs were not only political rulers, but also cultural patrons. Vienna became a center of European music, art, and intellectual life. Magnificent structures such as Schönbrunn Palace and the Hofburg complex symbolized imperial authority and refinement. Composers like Mozart and later Beethoven worked within the broader cultural world shaped by Habsburg patronage. The dynasty understood that architecture, ceremony, and artistic sponsorship reinforced political legitimacy. Yet beneath this grandeur lay a structural weakness. Generations of intermarriage within European royal families produced the so-called Habsburg jaw, a visible sign of genetic concentration. Dynastic preservation had unintended biological consequences. In the 19th century, Emperor Franz Joseph I became one of the longest-reigning monarchs in European history. His rule began during revolutionary upheavals in 1848 and continued until 1916. This period was marked by nationalism. Ethnic groups within the empire, Hungarians, Czechs, Croats, and others, demanded autonomy. In 1867, the empire was reorganized into the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary, granting Hungary equal status. Though this compromise stabilized the empire temporarily, it did not eliminate nationalist tensions. The empire remained a complex mosaic of languages, cultures, and political aspirations. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 triggered a chain reaction that led to the First World War. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and alliances rapidly escalated the conflict into a global war. By 1918, exhausted by war and internal division, the empire collapsed. National movements declared independence. The Habsburg monarchy ended, and Emperor Karl I abdicated. What had once been a dominant European dynasty dissolved into history. Though the political structure of the Habsburg Empire disappeared, its legacy remains visible. Central European borders, architectural monuments, administrative traditions, and cultural institutions all bear traces of Habsburg influence. Vienna still reflects imperial grandeur. Legal systems and bureaucratic traditions in parts of Central Europe carry echoes of Habsburg reforms. More importantly, the Habsburg story demonstrates how dynastic strategy, diplomacy, and marriage could shape continents without constant territorial conquest. The rise and fall of the Habsburg dynasty reveals the complexity of European history. From a medieval castle in Switzerland to a global empire and eventual collapse after World War I, their journey spanned nearly 700 years. Their legacy is neither purely triumphant nor purely tragic. It is a reminder that power built on alliances, culture, and administration can endure for centuries. Yet even the most enduring empires remain vulnerable to change. The Habsburgs did not simply rule Europe. For generations, they defined it.